So I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Is being recorded. Can we get a roll call, please, Amanda?
Absolutely. Board Member Alexander.
Here.
Board Member O'Malley.
Here.
Board Member Sohi.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Ketchum.
Here.
Chairperson Harden.
Here.
All present.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's move on. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right. And a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Can we get a roll call on that, please, Amanda?
Board Member Alexander.
Yes.
Board Member O'Malley.
Yes.
Board Member Sohi.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Ketchum.
Yes.
Chairperson Harden.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. So now we will officially open up the public comment period. It's reserved for anyone wanting to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would wish to speak at this time before we move on? Okay, so seeing that we don't have anybody wanting to speak just now, we will go ahead and move on to the agenda item. First up is the consent calendar. Are there any board members that would like to pull any items from the consent calendar? Anybody from the public that would like to pull an item? All right, seeing no comments there, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Perfect. Can we get a roll call, please, Amanda?
Board Member Alexander.
Yes.
Board Member O'Malley.
Yes.
Board Member Sohi.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Ketchum.
Yes.
Chairperson Harden.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and move on to our business items. First, we've got the ad hoc committee report for TOT collection. And I believe, Terry, you were going to give a review first, correct? And then us up after you?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
So thank you, Chairperson Harden.
Yeah.
The ad hoc committee, just to give you a brief recap of that, it was created to look into the cost of the new TOT collection billing system, billing software system with HDL, to understand more behind the increase to the costs. In May of 2021, we brought it before the APBID to see, it had an ability to go monthly for billing, and as well as a quarterly billing ability. And I know the APBID has always wanted to look at going monthly, always had an interest because it's more timely, it's more accurate, and it helps identify travel and marketing trends. The cost at that time was about $10,000 annually to do that. In January of 2022, the monthly program was brought back to APBID as the cost had increased to about $17,000 annually for quarterly billing due to the increase in the number of short-term rentals in the 7-month time frame. Because of that, an ad hoc was assigned to look into the program further to understand the increase in the cost to billing monthly. And our administrative services director, Jerry Rangel, who's on the call today, could pull in the numbers in a report to better understand the cost fluctuations. And that's what you're looking at right now on your screen. The ad hoc committee and the city met on March 3rd and reviewed the attached. And then since that time, both the ad hoc committee and the city have had individual meetings reviewing the online billing platform. Based on the city's individual meeting, if the decision is to be quarterly, the city will retain the current billing platform with HDL for their services. And if the APBID would like to go monthly, that option is available with this online billing platform, and that APBID would pay the additional cost over the quarterly costs for the monthly billing to do that. And that ranges estimating between 10 and 20,000 per year based on the number of active short-term rentals in the market. And then we also have the compliance feature to discuss along with this report. So at this point, though, I'd like to turn this over to the ad hoc committee for their report.
Perfect. Thanks, Terry. I'm going to go ahead and kind of go over some points, and then Amr can jump in after I'm done. As you mentioned, our original vote was in May 2021, and I think we approved it at $10K to move to the monthly program. But since then, the costs have significantly gone up, like you highlighted. The cost, as you can see on this report here, is much higher. It's an increase of about, I think it was 27,000 from what we originally were looking at. TBID, as you mentioned, has always wanted to go monthly, and the short-term rentals, from what we know, wanted to go to an online platform, but we weren't sure if anyone wanted both of those items or if that was just assumed. The option was presented to us on how to kind of offset some of this cost with passing the fee down to the short-term rentals with their business license. However, our concern on that is that that might cause them to believe that that's coming directly from the board here and will pit the short-term rentals against the lodging properties or against TBID and cause some unnecessary tension between everyone. Our belief is that the decision should be made by the one who made the choice to approve the online contract with HDL, and therefore this increase, because originally $10,000, now we're looking at a lot more, and it's only been, what, 10 months since we did that, and it seems like a significant increase over that, and we don't necessarily believe that TBID should have to shoulder that burden of that increase. We have always wanted to go monthly and move away from quarterly so that we had that data. However, we want to make sure that the council does not think that we wanted to go online, stay quarterly, and pay the increase. We just want to make sure that that's completely transparent and communicated. The choice to do all of that was either from the short-term rentals or the city, not 100% from TBID, and we don't feel it was communicated to us until after the contract was signed, so we're a little worrisome there. And then in general, I don't know where the disconnect was, but we feel there was a lack of communication coming from May to when we did hear about it in January. And you might be able to touch a little bit more on it, Terry, and kind of explain that. But the price increase was so drastic, and it just seemed like it came out of nowhere by January when you did bring it up. And I know you mentioned that that's when you found out about it, but we just wish we would have known sooner. And we want to make sure that there was some type of an RFP or a bid shop that went out, because we in good faith trusted that the city found an appropriate alternative with pricing and all that. But then this increase came along, so we're just concerned about that. And those are kind of my big points. I'm sure I'm missing something. Amr, what else am I missing?
No, I think that was perfect. I couldn't have said it at nearly as close or as good as you said it and highlighted all the black and white points. I think that was perfect. And I mean, I guess just to if to reiterate anything, just like you said, May 21st, it was approved for a $10,000 increase to go monthly. And, as we're aware, there's been a lot of changes, price increases, a lot more short-term rentals that have driven that cost up. So I think the question is, now we're basically still doing it quarterly, but it still is a $10,000 increase. And so I think the only other question I have, because you said everything is, we still haven't seen the contract. So what are the terms of the contract? And if there are changes, if we want to cancel, if we just, if we don't want to pay an additional $10,000 for the same information, what are our options on that?
Okay, thank you. I was trying to find my unmute button there. Rochelle, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
I just want to make sure that we have a clear understanding. The city is not asking for the TBID to contribute the $10,000 for the quarterly. So if we decide to stay quarterly, we would not be asking the TBID to contribute anything towards that contract. So that is just what there. Certainly we can get anybody a copy of the contract with the city for the HDL, but the TBID would only have to contribute if they choose to go monthly. So make sure we're starting from that correct common spot. And I know that wasn't the case when they were talking the ad hoc committee. So I just want to clarify that now.
And that would just be the 10,000, correct?
No, the city will pay for the quarterly amount. If we want to go monthly, we would be looking to the TBID to
pay the difference.
Yes.
So on the fiscal impact, if the TBID is interested in moving to monthly TOT collection, it's estimated that the TBID will incur anywhere between 10 and 20,000 in costs annually per the current number of short-term rentals, because that's what's driving this. And if the TBID desires, we have that whole short-term rental compliance program, and that's a separate, so we'll keep that separate for now, but for moving in a monthly direction, it's 10 to 20,000, depending on the cost of the short-term rent or the number of short-term rentals.
And we can, if the TBID wants to, we can make that change like at any time, just with a little bit of notice, right? It doesn't have to wait till a fiscal year or the end of end of a quarter was when we would wait for it, but.
If there's a transition time for billing out on a monthly basis, we have to let our lodging owners know that we'll be going to a monthly billing, because they have to, submit the reporting on a monthly basis. Everything changes on a monthly basis. And as you can imagine, people wanting to pay monthly versus quarterly, they're going to want to pay quarterly, not monthly. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. But I'll let Jerry maybe speak to that a little bit more on the transition.
And can I just jump in here too?
Yes.
It will take quite a bit of lead time before we can move to that monthly. We also have to bring it to the city council. The city council has to conduct public hearings, have it noticed in the paper. It doesn't go into effect for at least so many days after that. So there is several months that we'll need before it would go into effect.
And then just to confirm, so is the city gonna absorb those costs, or is that gonna get passed to short-term rentals? Just because I guess I echo Patricia's concern that, we wouldn't want short-term rentals to think that that's a TBID decision.
But it is a TBID decision.
Yes. it
Right?
is a TBID
You go
decision.
monthly. Yes.
What's a TBID decision? I mean,
Whether we
like,
go stay quarterly or go monthly.
No. I'm talking about the cost increase. I'm talking about the city absorbing that $10,000 cost increase to stay quarterly to go to HDL. Is that the city that's going to be paying for that, or is that going to be passed to short-term rent? Okay, so it's not
Yes.
going to be passed to short-term rent.
That's us.
Business license renewals.
And so that you guys understand, this was a business decision. We're running out of staff capacity. And this was a cost-effective way to be able to do this without having to hire more staff, which would have been a more expensive option. So the city is absorbing those costs.
Okay.
For the quarterly.
For the
So
quarterly.
Yeah.
I would still propose, if the city manager is okay with it, to bring to council the opportunity to reimburse the city for those charges like we do. City policy is to bring to the council any costs that we incur for folks, that they should reimburse those costs. That's our city policy. We would bring that to council, and then they would have the opportunity to approve or disapprove of that option.
But it would be strictly from the city.
Right.
Well, I have questions when it's my turn, Madam Chair. I'm not sure where we are in the dialogue at this point.
Yeah, I think we're ready. We can open up board questions, Tom, so you can go ahead.
Okay, and I want to kind of differentiate between city's interests, short-term lodging interests, and TBID interests, and they kind of bumped into each other. I think Rochelle's clarification may make this a little easier, and not having been involved in this research, I might have some misconceptions, but I think basically we have an increased cost for the new software, and that is the equivalent to keeping the same level of service before, which would be managing this monitoring of the transient occupancy tax on a quarterly basis. That any increase in the cost from that is absorbed by the city. Is that correct, Rochelle? So then that is the neutral portion. We're getting the same level of service and activity as before at no increased cost to anybody other than the city. So now the question is, it was a TBID issue, do you want to increase from quarterly to monthly record keeping. And that was a TBID request. If there's an increased cost to that, the TBID is going to bear that increased cost. Is that correct? You're not going to try to shift that on to all the small short-term rentals.
We would be looking for a TBID recommendation if we wanted to do that.
Yeah,
We
that's fine.
do examine fees all the time, yes.
Yeah, so that's, I think, the issue. Then it really is a TBID issue. And so if the TBID decides they want to go from quarterly to monthly, that's one decision. And then if the TBID wants to try to shift that cost onto small TOT payers, that will be the issue. And if you do that before the time that you're voting on TBID membership, I think it's going to greatly change who shows up and wants to be on the TBID, and we'll be voting on that because people aren't too involved when you don't impact their pocketbook. But a lot of people, I probably have more contact with the little guys than the average person in the TBID. And so I think that would be a big issue. I look at it as there's particularly no advantage to the small operator. It's really kind of an issue for larger operators where I've always thought it was a good idea. You don't necessarily want everyone being in business but not paying TOT. That was the issue. You want to make sure there's compliance because it kind of eats away at everybody that's more active. And so that would be probably a TBID thing you'd like to see happen. And probably it would be a city issue you'd like to be. You don't want to have holes in the collecting bucket, so to speak. So it seems like that would be something the city and the TBID would want to share in. But I think it clearly is a kind of a TBID or a city issue, is who is wanting any increase in level of service, it seems to me. So that's making sure. If I misunderstand anything on that, I'd be happy to be enlightened. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you have any other questions from the board at this time on any of this?
I think the only other question I have is, I'm not sure if that's what you were going to talk about when you said compliance, Terry. But I was gonna just wanted to follow up with the with host compliance. Like, is that because of HDL? I think if I remember correctly, is that I guess data or service kind of included with HDL? Do we have to continue with host compliance? Could you talk about that?
You don't have to continue host compliance. So the HDL billing platform offers short-term rental compliance where they charge $45 when they identify per property someone who's out of compliance, like they're not paying TOT, and then they actually send a letter to that lodging property to become compliant. So what's nice about HDL is they take it one step further and they send out the information versus host compliance, where when we get that information, we put together a report, we give it to our code enforcement, they go out, they send the letter. So it comes back on staff a little bit more, where HDL does a lot of that. The host compliance has been $5,137 a year, $5,137 a year. They are offering $3,000 a year to renew. That's about, I want to say it was 37 properties. I forget exactly how many properties that was, because it's actually $90. That's what it was. $90, $45. Jerry will nod at me. $45 to identify the property, $45 to send a letter to follow that through. So it's $90 a property. So if you take $3,000 divided by 90, you're at 33 properties a year. And at this point with host compliance, we don't even get 33 properties a year. We have more like not even a trickle. It's slowed down pretty extensively, versus in the beginning, it was worth $5,100 because we were brand new at it. And we had to identify all these properties. But at this point, it seems like the HDL piece, they do that next step for us. And, that really makes a big difference as far as the $90 a property. And Jerry, please weigh in if I missed anything on that.
I have a question to follow up after Jerry.
Okay.
Terry's right on all of that, and that is upon request from us. So we would direct them to do that. They don't just go on their own and do that. So that would be at our direction.
Yeah, because they're not hires, well, they're not specifically contracted like Host Compliance is. That makes sense. Thank you, Jerry. Tom?
Well, and again, it's me trying to understand that I may be missing something here, but I can't tell if the increased costs, which seems to be coming out to like $90 a property, if you're looking at that being levied against more like a fine against a property that has been out of compliance. That makes perfect sense because that's what some of the purpose would be. Or you're talking about every property, you're kind of dividing up, here's the total bill for doing this checking, and you've divided it up for all properties and everybody's paying the same amount, which comes out to be $90 per person on the list of TOT payers. Could you clarify which we're talking about?
So this would be for those that aren't paying TOT. Go ahead, Rochelle.
So if somebody is out there, they go and scan the universe. If they find somebody that's operating that's not paying TOT, we would be charged $90 for them to identify that property and for them to send whatever code compliance letters would be there.
Okay, I think you answered my question. So then I have to change my opinion, because if we're only sending a bill to someone who's out of compliance, I would stick it to them as much as you can, in a sense, because there's limits to what the city can do because of all the legal issues. It may just only be limited to cost recovery, but you certainly, that seems completely fair that, whoever is creating they're basically not obeying the law, and they're paying the cost of the effort to find that. If that's the case, that seems personally good. Rochelle, is that am I off or what?
We wouldn't necessarily, that would be what the TBID would pay, right? So instead of paying $5,000 to Host Compliance a year, if HDL identifies 10 of them, let's say, you would pay $900. We wouldn't necessarily go after that person, because I will tell you that it will cost us much, much more to collect the $90 than it will to do it. Most people fight it. They argue they don't even want to sign up. We do try and go after back TOT. HDL has some more ability than staff has to try and figure out how long they've been in business and try and go after that. So we certainly would go after as much as we can, but I don't want to promise that we're going to get the $90 out of them.
No, but I think the key is what's different, and council's usually been supportive of this. If we always have on the council believed in full cost recovery. So any costs, your costs, the TBID's costs, any costs you can show is directly related from this non-compliance is fair game, and court costs and everything else. And if someone just can't, pay their fair share to be in business, they shouldn't be in business. So to me, it seems like if that's the issue, why wouldn't you just charge like you would anybody else that is out of compliance? What's the full cost recovery to break even for the city and the TBID?
So for the city to levy fines, we don't levy a lot of fines. It's not something we advertise, but for us to levy fines, there's a very specific process that we have to go through.
Right.
And that includes their right to appeal by an independent board. Each one of those appeals costs us about $2,500 for that independent judge to review all of the information and hold the hearing and do the AUP and stuff like that. So we typically don't do a lot of fines. We try and get people to comply as much as we can. Certainly egregious people, if Terry was running a B&B and she just says, you know, nope, I will not sign up for TOT no matter what. At that point, we would start levying maximum fines, but to go through that process, and once they go through the appeal process, we still don't have the right to go after them until we go to court, which adds is about another 20 to 25,000 on top. And our ability to recover that is just usually very limited. We don't have a ton of success.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on that.
Yeah, I got that. Well, thank you for helping me get up to speed. But in that case, I kind of changed my original thought that that really is a city choice, because the city has a legal recourse and can decide they want to spend the money up front to go after this and set an example that usually you only have to do that once or twice. And people say, okay, that's not a good thing to do. And so then that's a city decision. That's not a TBID issue. You know, there's a way to recover that additional cost. The city can either absorb that themselves, or they pay what it takes to get that reimbursed by the perpetrator. That seems fair. So it seems to me, I'm kind of full circle back that I'm thinking like Amr was thinking, this sounds like it's a city issue, not a TBID issue. But that's just, you know, where I am at this moment.
Can I say something real quick? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, we were willing to spend that $5,100 a year for host compliance. And that was more to benefit the city than it was the TBID. I mean, they got 10%, we got 2%. So I'm not understanding why we would go after, first of all, the person in business for the $90 when we've been willing to spend that $5,100 a year for the last, how many years, 4 or 5 years?
Well,
I'm a little confused.
Well, you make a good point. That might be something else if you really want to go on a sidetrack. It sounds like that might be a good ratio. So TBID makes 2%, city makes 10%. That might be a good ratio for splitting costs.
And I think in the beginning with compliance, when it first surfaced, it was on, the TBID was frustrated that people weren't paying TOT. They were frustrated they weren't paying into the into TBID, into TMD. It all evolved out of that because there's all these different short-term rentals. And so that's why we put this in place to, you know, get the folks that are competing, if you will, in that same business to become compliant. And at that time, it was a pretty significant number, and we've seen the number now grow. So we might be in a different position now, but I know at that time, that was the reason why all of across the board TBIDs did that. That was kind of the standard that was happening. I remember calling Pismo Beach to ask Gordon about what program they had, just to understand what they had in place with TBID. And so that's how host compliance came to be. That gives the history of it anyway.
Well, it seems to me there's, you know, one, most folks now are aware that there's a compliance issue and is being compliant, but also we're at a period where there's probably going to be a continued increase in short-term rentals because everybody's figured out that there's very high demand, you know, and people are converting long-term rentals to short-term rentals. So that's a factor, but I think I have enough information now where I'd make a wiser, fairer decision whenever we have a recommendation to go forward on. We could circle back and see what was the recommendation by the committee? Where are we at on that, given everything everybody's heard at this point?
I just have one more question. I want to make sure that I have it like very clearly laid out. So as of right now, the city's going to shoulder the additional cost to keep us at the quarterly, but if we decide to go monthly, that could be $10,000 to $20,000 minimum, because that cost is always going to increase every time we get more short-term rentals, correct?
Correct.
So that can
Yes.
go up yearly for TBID.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, and then just for those, for like those expenses and those numbers in my mind to line up. So, going forward, if you know, going forward with the city absorbing those costs and with host compliance and those costs going away, will it pretty much just be like was it 6,800 on there? Is it going to be like a $6,800 charge for TBID annually? Am I understanding that correctly?
I lost you, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So
You mean on the short-term rental?
no, because it's still, I mean, it still costs, what was it, 850 a hotel, so our charge is like 6,800.
I
So I
see
mean,
you
going
on that
forward,
sheet.
like on
Yes.
our budget reports and stuff, you know, we will no longer see host compliant charges, the $5,137. At some point, those will drop off. And
Right.
we'll only see the 6,800. Is that correct?
You will, as far as the 5137 for host compliance, if we're not renewing host compliance, then that would drop off.
Okay.
So that's what would happen there. And then as far as your, the 6,800 that you're looking at here, you have your quarterly reporting. That's just the money that comes in on the quarterly. We're handling that the quarterly part is being taken care of by the city.
Right, so the charges through the HDL contract are $850 per year for each hotel. So whether it's more monthly or quarterly, that is the same fee. It's the short-term rentals that increase, so it's $15 per report. So if it's per quarter, or if it's quarterly, then it's 4 reports a year for each short-term rental, or 12 a year for monthly. So that's where the cost increases. So the city would cover the quarterly portion and be the other additional 8 months essentially that would be picked up by the TBID if you chose to do that. There is a CPI inflator on the $15, so that will go up slightly, you know, each year. I think it's updated, but it's primarily driven by the number of short-term rental reports that you have each reporting period.
Okay, but how was it listed before? Because before it was like, was it like 8,000 or 8,800 or something that we were paying to the city prior for collecting quarterly reports? And if so, is that line item going to go away? I think that's what I'm wondering.
You may be referring to the administrative fee. So that was about $2,800 last year. So that it covers partially, it covers the reporting for that, but it also covers a lot of other administrative costs associated with the TBID. So budgeting, auditing, all of the staff for council reports and minutes and all of, I mean, any administrative costs that's kind of intended to cover. Obviously, it doesn't cover all those, and Michelle has more information on that, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I was just here when the TBID came into being. The $2,700 doesn't even pay for the budgeting and the processing of invoices and the Terry's time or anything of that. So I would not link it in any way, shape, or form to collection. It's just what you pay the city, which is the percentage of what is collected for all of the services that the city provides, not counting the additional services that we now provide with, you know, actually doing the minutes and Amanda's time and preparing the staff reports and stuff. So
Yeah.
this is just basic budgeting and financial reporting.
Okay.
And Form 700s and there's a whole bunch of things that just need to happen. So.
And you're referring back to way back when JP wanted to go to monthly and what the cost was. If we were to give you what the cost was just for doing the quarterly billing, that's where that dollar amount came from.
Okay.
It was, I mean, anyway, and it wasn't like a dollar amount. It was, you know, a guesstimate to give an idea of cost.
Okay.
Okay, are there any additional questions from the board before we go to a public comment period on this? No, all right, so we will go ahead and open up a public comment period. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay, seeing that, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. Any final board member comments on this item?
Well, I just pointed it still, I basically believe in full cost recovery for everybody. The city ought to recoup whatever costs they have associated with doing the work of the TBID, and yet the TBID should only be paying the costs that are generated by their choice. So I think that's what I'd be looking at on wherever we go from here.
Any additional board member comments?
But isn't the real issue here whether we want to continue quarterly or spend the money on going monthly?
Yes.
Isn't that what we're actually trying to figure out here?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I don't think that's what we're trying to figure out here. I mean, right now we're just sticking to quarterly, and if we choose to go monthly in the future, we can revisit that talk. But I think right now it's just a matter through the, from the ad hoc committee of this additional cost to switch to HDL, who's going to absorb that? And from what Rochelle was saying, it sounds like the city's going to absorb that. So I think that's the only, if I'm misunderstanding something, I think that's only what we're discussing on this agenda item. And of course, yeah, if we choose to go monthly in the future, then we will bear that cost.
So we're done.
Basically, discuss and provide staff direction. So if you're done, then I want to say we would need a motion on staying quarterly.
Okay.
You need, and then also direction on the short-term rental. So you have two pieces to that.
Well, I would move that we adopt the recommendation of the committee, which is to stay on the quarterly billing and data collection. And at a future point, if we go to monthly, that would be a cost to reconsider then, and accept the city's absorption of the increased costs of the new program. Is that,
Okay, so
would that
Also-
cover it, Terry, for what?
I'm going to defer to Amanda. Did you get that, Amanda? And Rochelle, you raised your hand, so I don't want to make sure.
We're okay. Never mind.
Okay.
I just don't know that there's an increased cost with HDL. So but the city will continue to pay for collecting quarterly, period.
Period. That sounds fine. And the TBID will continue to only request quarterly billing and data collection. So we're basically staying where we were. That's fine. So maybe whoever is trying to write down a motion could repeat.
I mean, I'll second that. And then could we add, because HDL is already providing the services of host compliance to not renew host compliance going forward also.
So I amend my motion to include the mention by the second person. So that would be the motion on the floor. Could we maybe have someone, whoever is Amanda, if you want to state
read it
that?
back.
Yes, please.
I will do my best to kind of condense that, since there were several voices in the mix, but essentially what I believe the motion is to accept the city's taking over the HDL payments at this time at the amount for quarterly, and should the board wish to entertain going to monthly, that'll be discussed down the road, and that you are opting not to renew host compliance.
Perfect. What a brilliant motion I made.
I'm going to second that. It was so good.
Perfect.
Mary has her hand raised real quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Jerry.
I just wasn't clear on the second part. Is that going to be a separate motion for whether the TBID wants to pursue the
Host compliance.
HDL
with
adoption
HDL.
for host compliance?
I think we combined it. We're not going to renew, correct?
And then there's the HDL cost of the $90 a property if you want to pursue that option, I think is what.
I
Where
don't
we're
think I didn't include it in the motion, so where does that go? Go ahead, Amr, tell us the right answer.
Well, no. I thought that was, I guess, included with the service from HDL. So if they do find someone that's not in compliance, then in order to locate them is 45, to serve them a letter is 45. So
Right.
that'll basically be on a case by case basis, right? For as they find them. Yeah. So I don't think we have to add that HDL $90 piece to the motion because it's part of the service. Is that correct?
It's an additional part of the service.
Right. So we would
Okay.
have to request them to say, please go out and search for these. They won't come to us and say, hey, we found something. Do you want to do something? We have to say, please go out and search. It's going to be $90
Okay.
for each one we find. So that
I'm
we would
going
need
to
to
suggest to leave it up to the chair, but I would suggest let's vote on the motion on the floor and then come back to that because we've kind of massaged it quite a bit. So I think we're pretty much agreement on the motion and second, and then we can revisit, okay, there's this other $90 piece. How are we handling that? If that's the pleasure of the board, that would be one way to handle it, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to treat them as two separate items so we don't make the motion too convoluted personally. So I think we can stick with the current motion and second from Amr and then do the other one as a separate item, in my opinion. Or everyone else is good with that.
So I'll call the question.
Absolutely. Can I get a good?
Yeah, so can we, are we ready for a roll call on that motion then?
Board Member Alexander,
Yes.
Board Member O'Malley,
Yes.
Board Member Sohi,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Ketchum,
Yes.
Chairperson Harden.
Yes,
Motion passes.
So, that would be.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we got some background.
Now, someone's broadcasting. If we could put on mute, that would be great. Everybody who's.
Sorry, I think it's me, Terry.
Okay, that's all right. You're busy. And then the second thing would be HDL to do the direction to staff for HDL would be the next thing.
Okay, does anyone have a motion they would like to present for the HDL staff direction for that $90 fee?
I think the last question I have on that is that something, Jerry, that we can do? Like, can we like once a year contact HDL and be like, all right, do a scan, see what you find? Is that something that we like, do we just do it on I guess when we want to sort of thing, or is it quarterly, or how does that work?
however the board directs for
Okay.
that. Yes.
So like if we want to, it's the kind of thing where once a year, maybe it's like, hey, let's reach out to HDL and have them scan and see who's compliant out there, see if it did increase. Because I think, we were talking about that earlier, Tom, and I mean, like with everything that Paso, they are, doing a lot more. There's a lot more rules in Paso for short terms. There's a lot more rules in San Luis. So I do worry if that's going to drive a lot of that into Atascadero.
Yeah.
But anyways, if it's the kind of thing where we can just say, hey, let's do it, this month because we haven't done it for 10 months kind of thing, that sounds great to me.
Well, I agree. And I do think it's going to be an increasing challenge. I do think that's one thing to consider. The city might want to review. I personally think folks should, go through a lot more, like a conditional use permit and lots of other things more than most people would agree with. And so that's where it's kind of a combined TBID city issue. I also think it's an issue that it's a shared cost responsibility, because again, the TBID is just, the TBID really isn't making any money on the deal. What the TBID is doing is collecting an extra 2% that's going to go to marketing and increase revenue. And the city is, getting 10%. And I think I would kind of leave it that we just individually each decide. If the city says, we think we're losing too much money, we want to go do it. Okay, then the city goes and does that. If the TBID says, it's been a year, we don't know, and my suspicion is, and we might kind of get a feel, I usually kind of get a feel for what's going on. We might say, well, the TBID wants to initiate it, and so then they pay it. But I'm kind of with you, Amr. Maybe that's just a discussion we have with the city, and maybe once a year, well, should we do it? And who wants to pay? And who, I don't know. We have to have a rigid, well, let's always do it kind of a thing. So I would go as far as move that let's just have that be an once a year discussion. The city and the tourism board say, well, should we do it? Do we feel like we're losing money? We want to split the cost, or the TBID will do it, or the city will do it. City could just choose to do it independently if they want, if they think they're losing too much money. So could the TBID, but at least once a year we'd say, do we want to, look at doing it? So we just remind ourselves that that's an option and it may be of value. That's one way you could approach it.
So can I make a comment? I think it should be totally up to the city, based on the fact that they're the ones that are really benefiting from it. I don't think it's our job anymore to monitor the vacation rentals. I think it's our responsibility to spend the money that we get in from the 2% and spend it properly to get people to come here and visit.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you could kind of monitor, like if we feel like it's hurting us because other people are doing something. But my concern is the city has also two remedies to offset this cost. One is they can go for full cost recovery, that, okay, so if someone's creating a cost, you should stick it to them and they have to pay. You either decide you're going to do that or not. Or, and also two, if we are kind of a little behind, in terms of other cities are taking more, adding more conditions on short-term rentals, which I agree with, in terms of it causes problems for everybody when folks are operating and creating, a noise problem, a traffic problem, neighbor problem, all those things. And so I think that's something the city should consider anyway, that, well, let's kind of increase. And I know you're getting a lot of complaints at the city level too on some of these short-term issues, that maybe it's time to raise the bar a bit for folks that are, want to operate. So I guess that's my long-winded saying. I think at this point, I think it probably is on the city to make that decision. If you feel like it's hurting you financially, then go after these folks. I completely support you, and I come testify before the council. Yeah, I think you ought to require a conditional use permit. I think you ought to do all kinds of additional things that folks should consider so that they're not shifting costs on to others.
Okay, so to recap that really quick, to make sure I understood, if everyone's finished on that right now we're not doing anything with HDL, and obviously the motion was made that we're not renewing host compliance. We have HDL here at the city, so if we find we're running into those things, then we'll address it at that time and we can bring it back to the TBID as well. So, but I hear you loud and clear.
Do we need any additional official motions on that, Terry, or is just that recommendation for the 90 good enough?
To me, that recommendation is good enough. I mean, that gives us the direction that TBID's not taking any kind of direction on, like, you need to do this. It's out there, it's available, and that program offers it. I would say that's fine at this point.
I would suggest, and I think we are fine like that, taking no action, but I would just add that to our list on the agenda to kind of
Yeah.
remind us, let's revisit this topic at least once a year that, oh yeah, does anybody think there's a problem out there and should we revisit this? You know, I'd be comfortable with that.
How about quarterly?
Quarterly is fine.
That way I'm communicating thoroughly and making sure you guys know that you got HDL available. I don't want it to be off the radar at all. So we will add it. I want to make sure that that happens. So
That would be fine with me. So I think there's no
Okay.
further action is needed, it sounds like.
right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I think with that, then we're good to move on to item number 2, which is the budget overview and monthly report with Terry.
Fantastic. So let me share my screen again. And can everybody see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. More numbers, that's all. That's what this is about. This gives you an idea that you have in your packet. You have a lot of these in your packet. You have each one of these tabs at the bottom, gives you, what we collected through that time frame. So basically, this is what changes on each of those spreadsheets as far as our recap here with the TBID summary. And this is something that you all have been watching very closely. I think what will help you even more so is that the number here, the beginning available balance, that number has been updated as of 3/16/22. And I'll have Jerry talk to this a little bit more. I know that there's been question about reserves and that sort of thing and how we're doing. And at this point, I'll turn this over to Jerry so she can kind of give you a little recap and kind of give you a feel for what you have, where you're at with your spending with budget, which is about 76%. You're through half the year as far as expenses goes. But I'll stop talking and turn it over to Jerry for this one.
So the good news piece on this, I think, is, as Terry said, that number right there is your beginning balance, what we assumed we would coming into this year. So as of July 1st, 2021, we anticipated it was going to be about 350,000. You can see the next column over that 400,770. So we actually did about 51,000 better at the end of the day as far as fund balance coming into this year. So that's great news for all of us. So that's really helpful for your fund balance. As she was saying, so far for just the first 2 quarters, you've already collected 76% of your annual projected revenues. So we projected you would collect $292,320 this year, and you're already at 76% of that. So again, great news. So as long as you can stay in your expense budget, I mean, you'll be much better off at the end of this fiscal year than we budgeted originally. So great news. Not sure what other questions you have, but I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jerry. Let me know if you guys have any other questions on the TBID summary. Okay.
So, do we have a reserve account going then, or cash reserves?
You have reserve. I'm gonna let Jerry talk to that because she's more
right. So your fund balance is essentially your reserve balance. So I'm not sure what you mean by just a cash reserve piece.
I'm trying to remember. I might be crossing wires with other budget reports and other boards, but did we have a line item for cash reserves in past budget reports?
I know that Amanda used to do her Excel doc and she would pull out 20% or whatever of the revenue and she put it into reserves. That's how she did that, to show what your reserves were. But what you're looking at is exactly what we have, what we use. And Jerry, I know, has her budget piece as well. So that'll kind of give you that part.
I think we have we had some discussion, and, you know, I might not be clear on this either, but we basically we have unspent funds. So we haven't budgeted to spend all of the money that is on hand. And so you could consider that like a reserve. And I had recommended that we formalize that and have some categories. And we did agree on some categories that I would call them reserves. The city might not technically look at it like it's not a required reserve, but we've set aside kind of a warning light for us. Like, we got 2 gas tanks. We're going to go ahead and go to town on this one gas tank, but we just say, before you dip into that other gas tank, we want to know and have a discussion, because we want to keep a certain amount of buffer in case, for a number of things, like we talked about emergencies, or like some major, you know, Highway 1 shuts down and we lose a bunch of customers. How do we have some money to spend in a case like that that we don't have currently budgeted, that could, you know, basically be used to remind folks we still are here and you can take a different route or something. So I think it'd be good, Terry, at some point we kind of review that discussion we had when I think Amr and I were on that committee.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's what Amr is talking about, and what I keep in mind. It's basically, there's money that we are not spending and it's not budgeted. So we really couldn't spend it, but we could say we want to have that budgeted, which is really our money. The city can't take it. The city can't by law do anything else with it.
Nope.
But we haven't budgeted all of the money we have, and we would call that a reserve.
Yes.
I would.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, what you like. Go ahead, Jerry.
I think I just pulled up the resolution that we did for that reserve policy. And I think as you're saying, Mr. O'Malley, it does indicate, you know, we will look, as part of going through the budget process, we will consider things such as the state of the economy, cash flow needs, costs of potential natural disasters and emergencies or other significant events, and that there shall be no upper limit on the reserve, but the reserve levels shall be no less than 20% of budgeted TBID expenditures. So I think we determined that we would kind of go through that with the budget cycle, which we did for the past budget cycle that we adopted, that we're now in.
Yeah.
We can put that on a future discussion too, Tom, to go over all of that.
Yeah, it's a
Budgeting
little
and stuff.
confusing, especially since
Yeah.
we use a different language than the city government financing does. So it gets confusing, I think, for folks. But I think it's easier if you can just, you know, do it as like the jars of money you really have in your office, Jerry. You know, like, okay, we've got this much money we could spend, but we're only in the budget. We have a lesser amount that we have some leeway on, but we could request that you increase the budget.
Yes,
Anyway.
you can do that, definitely, and it would go to council.
A separate discussion on that for folks that if they're interested.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to echo that. I think, yeah, if I remember correctly, we already went through an ad hoc committee on this.
You and I were it.
And we already decided, well, we already recommended with the approval of the rest of the board, and I think it passed with the city, that we want to treat it like our own business, where we have our own reserve accounts, and we want it line item, we want it separate and easily readable. So I'd like to go back to how it was. I mean, seeing as we already had the discussion, we already put all the work in for the feasibility of it. So yeah, I'd like to see a cash reserve line item.
Well, I think it'd be nice if it was actually shows in, you know, we would call it the budget. The city might, you know, show us where that is, that money. So to
Okay,
say.
so you're, on this particular item, this is a receive and file for the budget, but what we can do is bring it back to another meeting and go through it. I know we're adding events as well as a line item and the ongoing expenses, so you can see where you're at with events. And then we can look at this as well. and put it on another agenda item in April.
Yeah, well, I think Amr and I are a little clear on this because we went through this
Right.
quite thoroughly in,
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Jerry, is that doable on the cash reserve on the line item? We leave this topic.
Right, we could do the 20% that we have in the policy and put it on a worksheet as we're seeing on the screen. It wouldn't go into the city adopted budget and audit pieces because we have to follow government accounting code on that.
And I think just to not scare folks, it's just a language issue for government finance versus a private sector finance. They treat some of these fundings and accounts a little bit different. So the money is there. We just, whatever label you put on it, Jerry, you know, just so folks can see there's
Cash reserve.
that's what we call a reserve.
However, where it's the most clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Very good. The other pieces is, are there any more questions before I leave this particular spreadsheet on the TBID summary?
Did you say you were going to create a line item under expenses for events? Did you say that?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes,
Okay.
we've done that. So that way you can see. I think it's important for all of us to see where we are with these things.
Okay.
Okay. No more questions? I don't want to swap screens on you guys, so bear with me here while I go to our next one, which is the expenditure screen. And again, this is, you know, kind of collecting all through the year, all the expenses. You can see all the dates that are right here that label everything as we go. So I encourage you all to look through this. One thing I can tell you, we did start the administrative part charges that we had talked about with the administrative services piece. So this is that fee right here, the $2291.67. And that's taking the, I believe it's, forgive me, 27,500 divided by 12 or whatever number that is, 28,000 divided by 12. That's that monthly charge for what was Big Red is now us taking care of the meetings and the agendas and all of that. So I wanted to make sure you knew that because this is all through January 31st. So that would have started in January. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. And then the last but not least is the TOT. And this is the 10% TOT tax where you're falling with your first quarter, July through September, second quarter, October through December. And then of course, we're still in the January, March, third quarter. So you can see how the numbers have changed quite a bit. We can see how the trend, all that pent up demand for people to get out and travel and do things is definitely hitting our market here in our destination as well as the whole county. So any questions on this one? Okay.
I think I just want to plant a seed on this one. It's great to see, you know, so much more money coming in, you know, both on the TBID side, on county TMD side, and for city budgets as well. So I feel like something that we should maybe in the future, you know, that we'll want to start discussing more, I think, is beyond events. Like what can we do and what can we, I guess, invest some dollars into as far as like the guest experience that's coming here. You know, like when it comes to, you know, they're connecting all these trails and they're doing this, like, you know, is there an improvement that, you know, collaboratively that we could work on to, I guess, enhance the guest experience? So, I mean, you know, marketing, of course, and events, most definitely, but that might be something with all this additional money that's coming in that we may want to discuss in the future.
I completely agree. I think that's excellent, something we ought to be doing, and that would dovetail very nicely with other things the city is doing. It's what I call tourism infrastructure, you know, things that kind of augment that experience for visitors. I think that's very good.
I put it on our future agenda items, so it's there along with the itemized budget item that we have.
that's wild growth though. I mean, we've all come a long way, that's for sure.
All right, very good. It's a receive and file. So
I think we just.
if there's no
need
other board
to-
comments, public.
Yeah, any other board questions? Any,
Well,
sorry, go
I'm
ahead,
just
Tom.
talking about what the budget cycle is. I don't know if Terry is still here, but Terry might know. There will be a logical point where we should have this discussion where it's kind of like I assume it's with the next budget cycle, we should have basically unanticipated revenue. We're having more money come in than we budgeted for in a sense. So this is a good time to sit down and split that up. I definitely think reserves this is the time to be thinking about it so you underspend, but I really like where Amr is suggesting, and there's a lot of potential for us to partner with other folks in the community to do that and be seen as a partner. So I think that's excellent, as well as take it up a notch on new opportunities in marketing and events. I think it's all, but I assume that's the time we would do it. And just a ballpark, when would that be, Terry?
You're actually coming right into it right now. If I look at Jerry, I'm like, yeah, my deadlines, I'm sure, for budget the next cycle, or it'd be the April TBID meeting.
Wonderful.
It would make sense because
Amr,
that's
you're so
our
on
annual.
top of things.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So, I mean, we adopt the budget every 2 years, so we're in the middle of that 2-year
That's the
cycle.
year.
So if there were other things that you wanted to spend in addition to what you already have in the existing budget, then we would bring that to council.
Yeah, and it's timely for that. Because I do the annual TBID usually in June. So for April, that would be a good thing.
Wonderful.
Perfect. Any additional questions from the board? Any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? So we can go ahead and close that, and then I think we can officially receive and file, and then move on to item number 3.
Okay, very good. So Stu is up, and I did see him. There he is. Finally, thanks,
Yeah.
Stu, for bearing with us.
That's okay.
So as we talk Garage East Festival, I'll go ahead. Sorry, Patricia. I'll have you go ahead and introduce Stu. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. No, you're good. Stu, you are up, and you can go ahead and speak on the Garage East Festival for us. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You can. It's just my little green Zoom light's not coming on when I'm speaking. What's wrong with that? Anyway, hi, everybody. Thanks for having us back. I think what you have in front of you is what Doug sent us.
Yes.
In terms of our post-game report, in terms of our November festival. Obviously, this was our first festival back after a long break. It was, I think, almost 2 years since our previous one. So we were grateful, one, that we got to do it, and two, that we got to pull it off. It was very successful. We could have sold more tickets. We're being very conservative in terms of particularly our Friday night, because we wanted to make sure we had space and distancing and all of those things that hopefully won't have to apply anymore. So that affected us a little bit, but you can see by our attendees in terms of these, where they come from, at least 55% of them are from out of state. I mean, out of the town. We promoted along with, and this is the 57%, should I say, is the first, these are the people who've come here the first time. So I think that's pretty good in terms of our attendees, but which is one of the big things. I know you guys want to put heads in beds and you're thinking about bringing people into the region. The Lake Pavilion was great. It worked out really well for us. And I've been through this conversation a little bit with Terry online. We had some issues with regards catering. And I think that was more, we weren't fully in communication with Lisa, who was our event director, and she was organizing it and sort of at arm's length. And that wasn't my department. And unfortunately, the people that we did get to cater were Trumpet Vine, a company which I previously promoted on my radio show and supported wholeheartedly. And I had no idea they'd been sold during COVID. And as a result, the new principals in the company treated us like an out-of-town wedding and not a nonprofit. And we just got really killed on food, which will never happen again. And there was just nothing we could do about it. We're already involved in that. It was something that I wasn't personally on top of until post facto. And even then, when I asked for some explanation, I didn't get a very good explanation from the now head of that company. In fact, what she turned our whole concern into was, well, we haven't been paid yet. And in reality, we'd sent her a check. Someone had stolen it out of her mailbox. But that's neither here nor there. However, very successful event on every level. We want to do it again. We want to tweak it a little bit next year in terms of make it larger. And also the Sunday, obviously we have the event in Paso on the Saturday, but the Sunday now is what we call Passport Day, where people are in town and they're encouraged to go out to wineries in town. And I'm noticing now there's more and more tasting rooms in Atascadero proper. Do you know how many guys you have, how many tasting rooms you actually have now?
I think we have 4 within probably 500 feet of the Carlton.
Right, because I know
There are
Mia's
wine bars,
Mia's
right?
down the road. Then you have
Tasting rooms, yeah.
it would well.
And Mia, yeah.
I can see how many. I can look up. We can do find out how many of our wineries have that fit our criteria have tasting there. But even if not, we can do something this year regards promoting that Sunday a little better. Like I said, getting our feet wet again was really pretty difficult, coming out of just being static for so long and then starting again. But again, I've talked to Doug about this, and we've asked for tier 1, and I know we didn't get it last year, and that's really about our numbers. But he was saying to me before we made the call that what I should be pointing out to you is that the majority of our people are in town for the whole weekend. So they're not necessarily just in for that one event. They're coming into town, they're seeing, they're, basically staying for the weekend. I think it's most people are staying for at least 2 nights. 1 to 2 night stay was 65%. 3 to 4 was 30%. So that's basically all of our out of town people are staying for a reasonable amount of time. They're not just a 1 night stand. And in regard to promotion, we do a lot of our own promotion. We have our own public relations firm that put out press releases on our regard for every festival. You were specifically mentioned in those. I know we've got email blasts, etc., listed in those. I'm trying to, this is hilarious. I'm trying to flick through those documents and I don't have them in front of me. I have to look on my phone. Obviously, Terry has control of the documents.
I know. I'm just trying to show what you're talking about with
Yeah,
the email blast. That's okay.
I'm just all over the place. That's the story of my life. But anyway, that said, I think you can see we had your logos in all of our e-blasts. We had the Visit Atascadero logos in all of our programs, which are given out at all of our events. So it's not only for the Friday night, it's also given out at our main event on Saturday. And those are all distributed. And I don't know if we did a reach out this year. We probably didn't for local advertising from A-Town, because a lot of times we do have our own advertising. You see there you are up the top. We can actually offer discount rates to businesses in A-Town if they want to promote in that program, and that program goes home with people, and it's people hang on to it because they're making all their wine notes and so on. And we found it's really great in terms of positioning, branding, and all of that sort of stuff. So this year coming, we'll definitely offer the opportunity for Atascadero businesses to become involved in that at a discount rate. That will be hotels, whatever. But like I said, mainly what Doug's saying is that we are a year-round promoter because we exist online in our website. We're constantly promoting this concept throughout the year. So it's not just like around the time of the festival, it's from now through the end of the year. But other than that, we're really grateful to have the pavilion, and it was a great event, and very much appreciate your support.
Very good, Stuart. I clicked into the event support application right now. So that gives everybody an idea of what you're looking at for 2022. And I don't know if it might be an opportunity. This is just me thinking of adding our Visit Atascadero logo to all of the things that you do when you're out there promoting year round. I don't know if that's an option. I don't know if that's something that you all would be open to, but just giving.
No, it's an option, and we're present in a lot of different areas now. Mainly, I think what we get and what we've been very cognizant on from the beginning of our festivals is we get coverage out of town. So we have Melanie, who has got her own PR firm, and we've been really good in getting out of town coverage. Of course, with COVID and all of this sort of stuff, all of that wound down, and now it's kind of, we're in the rebooting phase. So we were lucky enough to survive through COVID. A lot of people didn't. A lot of festivals went away and aren't coming back. So we're grateful that we're able to get ours actually in November, which worked out great because, as you know, there was that lull in November. Then it grew again around Christmas, January, and now it's kind of lulling again, and hopefully it will stay that way. We just did our Solvang event, which was really great and well supported and fantastic. So, and at each of these other events, we're always promoting the other events. So when we go to Solvang, we promote everybody else and vice versa. So that's our kind of pitch on that. Any questions?
Yeah, do we have any questions from the board at this time?
I just got one quick question, Stu. Are you able to give us any information as far as the Solvang event? Do they have like rough, I'm just curious, but do they have kind of roughly the same number of out-of-town visitors? Is it kind of the same? Is it way different?
I'd have to look that up for you. I can get that to you. Let me make a note of it. Probably
it's not a big deal. I
know. You know what? I know that we, unlike a lot of local events, we do have a huge draw. So there are those people who will come to all of them, which is very weird to me. It's hard for me to actually manage all of them, let alone come to, wanted to attend them. But we do have a cadre of people who go Solvang, Sonoma, LA, and Paso or North County. But I can get that for you. Let me make a note, and I'll get that for you from Doug.
Perfect. Any additional questions from the board? So we can go ahead and open up public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, we'll close that public comment period. Any final board member comments at this time? Okay, does anyone have a motion on this item they would like to present?
I think for me, I mean, I think the Garage G's Festival is an awesome event. It still boils, I think, back for me, it boils back down to the event. The main event is held in Paso on Saturday, and we're talking about a secondary event at the pavilion on Sunday, or more just the
No. The pavilion.
Passport
The pavilion. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the pavilion's actually our intro event, and it's on the Friday night. So it's when people come to town. That's the first event that we had. And Dina, used to have us was gracious enough to have us at Carlton. And we did a lot of events over the years at Carlton. But with the pavilion, we can have a bigger event. We could have been more ambitious in terms of our ticketing, but these things always happen post facto. And given what it cost us for catering, I'm kind of glad we didn't blow it out too much. Because it was just ridiculous. It'll never happen again, but those things you live and learn. But so the way it works is Friday night, Atascadero, Saturday in Paso, then Sunday, like I said, we're developing this passport day when people just suit themselves. We give them a list of everyone who's open and available, and they can travel around if they want. You know, and I was talking to Doug last week because we're talking about things that we could help Atascadero with, and one of those might be an actual map or something with regards to promoting those ones that are in a town and getting people into Atascadero. Because Paso's kind of, in terms of what we do, it's not as garagisty as Atascadero, and I mean that in a very nice way, if that's possible. You know, I think Atascadero now is just younger and more vibrant, and seems more edgy, and people are, you know, new businesses are happening there, where, you know, Paso tends to be old school, and it's kind of pricing a lot of people in our thing out. They couldn't start up there. So
Did Garage G's originally start in Atascadero, or was that in Paso?
we actually started at Windfall Farms in Creston.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So we used that facility, which was amazing. And they had it on the market at the time, so we had access to it, and we developed the stables out there as kind of and then they sold the property, and we had to move, and there was nowhere really that could accommodate us except for the fairgrounds, and now everyone's jumped on the fairgrounds bandwagon. I've noticed Road Rangers is there, and you know, I think the Paso Robles Wine Festival is going to be held there this year. I think because it's easier to coordinate security and all these things you need when you're serving alcohol.
Right.
You know.
Are you primarily looking for indoor areas, or can you do outdoor areas as well? For the
well, the problem is with November, we're always hedging our bets because, you know, as much as it never rains, I think we've had it rain once maybe. It's just in that window that you could literally be rained out. It's not like a safe outdoor, and it can be really cold too. It can be both those things, cold and or rainy.
now,
So, sorry.
so if you could do something, let's say under tents or something, that might be feasible. And I'm just going to throw in a thought, Elmer, while I think about it. You talked about infrastructure. You know, and we used to do our 3-day swing dance event, which JP says the first time we filled every motel in Atascadero. We basically had tents, 2 tents. They'd fill each half of Sunken Garden, so you could do large outdoor events. And that's what I call portable infrastructure. If we started looking at having some of those resources, normally organization like this would have to pay thousands of dollars just for 1 day of something like that. But if we actually bought some of those kinds of things that Terry had at her disposal, and you could offer, oh, by the way, you could host something pretty large, and we we have some of those things that we would basically cover the cost of, but we'd buy it and own it and have that opportunity. I'd like to have that talked about, when we get to that, and in the future, that could maybe pull some of these things into Atascadero, like you say, especially downtown where you walk around, you've got so much more ambiance and vibrant businesses. So Amar, what your topic brought up, and I think working with Terry and folks like this, we have a real opportunity for this next year's cycle, maybe into the future, of let's pull some of those things away from other cities because we're hungrier.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Tom. I know my wife worked for Central Coast Tent and Party, so I'm very familiar with those things and the cost of them. They are expensive to rent. And if you could cut that cost out for somebody, that would be really significant. Yeah, especially as soon as you start getting up to the larger ones like you're talking about, that would be like, a couple of them in the Sunken Gardens. Those are, those
I'd be happy to have some offline discussions with you on that and advocate for one way or another helping in that area. I think that's the kind of thing I've kind of advocated for years. And that's something I think the city would maybe be a dual investor with us on, what I call portable infrastructure. What do you need to be able to do larger events in our community, where it's Sunken Gardens or Lake Park Zoo? We've got some real assets where there's parking and things. How do we amplify that and make it easier for folks doing events? So I'm excited about that topic.
Well, I know PR in that vein, just to not rave on you too long, but I know PR WCA, they have a whole retinue of stuff. I mean, they have everything from pop-ups to tables, all manner of stuff that they have in storage that they use at all of their different events whenever. And for an organization that doesn't have a lot of money, that can be a huge thing. That's why we're really grateful to have the pavilion, because a lot of the time, the overhead involved in that just eats you up.
Right.
In lieu of time and Ummer's time, because I know he has to leave at 4, I just want to bring us back to whatever staff direction will be on this with sponsorship for November of 2022. And I think we need to go to public still.
We already went to public and then did this during comments. So we're going to wait for a motion if someone has it.
Okay.
So the ask is for 10,000 plus the pavilion. Is that it?
10,000 for you guys. For me, it's pavilion.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is what we did.
I would give approval of that request.
What was that, Tom?
I move approval of that request.
I would like to discuss that a little bit, only because as much as I love the Garage East Festival, I think until we get the big event in Atascadero, we should stay at the 7,500.
It was 5,000 last year. Just want to let you know that. I don't want you to think it was higher.
Well, then maybe we should go up to 7,500 because it more is like a tier 2 for us.
Okay, I will modify my motion. I suggest we fund them at 7,500, and I'd like to kind of work at this partnership of how we, work to keeping things like this in our area. But that'd be my motion. If someone wants,
I'd like to second that.
Perfect. Can we get a roll call, please?
Well, you say discussion on that? I don't know.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think I'm just going to say I agree with both Dina and Tom on this. And I lean heavier on, I think, sticking to the parameters of our tiered program. So I like the idea of going towards that tier 2, and while still showing good faith in Garage East Festival, that this is something that we want to continue to work with and more so own and bring to Atascadero.
Yes.
And hopefully next year be a $10,000 sponsor.
Well, yeah, and I very much appreciate every dollar that you guys can get to support us. And like I said, the last time we talked, I'm seeing great things in Atascadero. I'm a real big supporter of Atascadero downtown. I think you guys are doing a great job. And I look forward to working with you in the future, and we do.
See, I'm hoping to offer them less in the future, but we will cover sunken gardens with tents and anything else, and we want the whole damn thing in Atascadero. Thank you. And
hey,
I think it's,
Terry,
go ahead.
Terry,
Go
we're good on our event. As far as events and budgets and money we have to throw events, I assume we're good on that.
You're
regard.
fine
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think the timing is really crucial as far as being in November. It really helps us out.
yeah,
Like it's important to me.
We tried to find that weekend,
Right.
and of course people are coming and sitting on our weekend. It's just the way it is. I mean, it just is that way. But yeah, and that'll be it from now on. We won't move off of that weekend. We're not.
You guys have 3 weekends in a row in November.
okay, Banish. We got a motion and a second on the floor.
All right.
Yep. Can we get our roll call, please, Amanda?
Absolutely. Board Member Alexander.
Yes.
Board Member O'Malley.
Yes.
Board Member Sohi.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Ketchum.
Yes.
Chairperson Harden.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Perfect. We can go ahead and move on to the updates. Thank you, Stu, for the presentation. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much,
that.
guys.
Thank you, Stu.
Good luck. We'll see you in November, if not before.
Yeah, hey, Stuart,
Yeah.
send Tom O'Malley at portolian.com an email. I'll follow up.
I'll get it to you, Stu.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Perfect. So we will move on to the agenda updates, and starting first with Visit SoCal and Camille.
Hi, everyone. I'm just gonna share my screen.
Oh, wait, let me stop sharing mine. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, there you go. It's all yours.
Alrighty. All right, so hi, everyone. So Visit SoCal had their marketing committee retreat last week. So I just wanted to go over some of the high topic items that we went over just to prepare for the next fiscal year. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into that. So the main thing, one of the main things that we went over was the House of Brands revised phases. And you guys may have heard some of this in the past, but I'm just gonna jump through all of the different phases. Okay. So for phase one, this was focusing on connectivity with the destination partners. And so the main item of this was the logo lockup and cross-linking back to slocal.com. And so as you can see here, a lot of the different destinations have adopted this strategy by incorporating this SoCal logo within theirs. And like you could see with Visit Atascadero, they incorporated the wording actually into their logo, which was really great. And then also a part of the connectivity is the universal use of the SoCal hashtag on social media, which a lot of destinations have started adopting, as well as just an overall unified brand aesthetic. So then going into phase two, this incorporates our interactive map on the slocal.com website. And this will help provide context for travel time between destinations and create intuitive framework to help visitors plan their trips. And so as you can see here, we are going to have estimated drive times on our website. So for example, from Avila, you could see how many minutes it's going to take to get to the different cities from Avila Beach. And so this information is coded on our website with information taken from Google Maps. So we're hoping that this interactive map will help travelers plan their trips a little better so that they have a better understanding that our county is very accessible and easy to get around, and it will help influence them make more destinations and stops in their trip. The next phase is phase 3, the cross-visitation strategy. So we are really working to help boost cross-visitation, and so that those people and travelers that are visiting our larger destinations are also traveling to our smaller destinations. So what we are trying to do is develop the land of storytelling by connecting activities and experiences across the region. And by doing this, we're gonna try to develop creative assets with our agency to link destinations together to promote this. So as you can see here in this example, we have like an asset showing go from a boat cruise in to picnic chillin', just showing how easy it is to get from Morro Bay to Atascadero or other destinations within our community. And so the final phase, phase 4, was something that we proposed to the committee. I'm not sure if it will be adopted, but it is the idea of bringing in tourism business identity variations. And this was a way for us to include the other businesses in the tourism industry, such as the lodging, food and beverage, retail, so that they could help adopt this overall brand aesthetic and be a part of this local brand. And so we came up with something to put descriptive words with the logo to help them fit in with this local brand. So with lodging, they could be restfully SlowCal, soothingly SlowCal, or food and beverage, deliciously SlowCal. And so this is something that we proposed to the committee, and not sure if it's going to get adopted just because it could be a very heavy lift on the different destinations. But this is something that we proposed. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions on any of the phases before I move on? Oh, okay.
Real quick, sorry, my thing bleeped out. That's pretty awesome. I haven't seen this yet. I just want to throw out there, when I see lodging and restfully and comfortably, like if they're still taking I guess ideas, like welcoming would be a good one as well.
Okay.
For lodging.
Awesome. I'll take that back to the team. So moving into media trends, I'm just going to go over some media trends that our agency went over with the committee. Some of these trends include streaming. Streaming is a huge trend, and it's a big opportunity for advertising. With so many people streaming now with the various streaming platforms, it gives great opportunity for digital advertisements. Also, audio streaming is inspiring travel. So music sites like Pandora or Spotify or even podcasts are great ways to help promote digital ads to promote our destination. Podcasts are driving new power. So podcasts are very prevalent right now. Great way to help influence people just because it's the longer form of content and you have sometimes a longer ad spot to chat about it. Another media trend, TikTok is surpassing Pinterest as far as a travel space where people are going for inspiration. So Pinterest has been a really big space for that, but we've seen the last few years, TikTok is really picking up. However, Facebook still remains at the top. So most people are checking Facebook when they are looking for inspiration to book their trips, which I think is interesting. And then lastly, social users are consuming video. Social users are much more interested in video with the behind the scenes and the longer form content than just still photos. And so this is something that is really important to start incorporating into your assets and your social channels just to get the most out of that engagement. And so with all of these different media trends, it helps to diversify digital ads to capitalize on changing user behaviors to conform to what the user wants to see. And then lastly, an opportunity in media. This is a target audience, the purposeful traveler with children. So this is a new opportunity to target families. And based on our visitor profile study, we saw that SlowCal ranks the top destination for families, which means we're very inviting and we have a lot of opportunities for families to enjoy and travel and do all of the things. And also this group traveling with children spend 23% more per trip than those traveling without children. So this is something that we are going to work on in the next fiscal year to try and target that audience a little bit more and just get the benefits of that. And that is all that I have today. Does anyone have any questions from anything that I went over? All righty. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Camille. So we can move on to the marketing update with Verdon.
Well, Camille did a great job in sharing our marketing committee update. And I think the big thing, you said it earlier, we want to figure out ways to placemake now. And we are at a place where we can have those bigger conversations. And it's perfect timing as SlowCal's rolling out House of Brands and phasing in. We've started that phase one. All cities have complied to kind of a variation of that phase one. You'll see on the Visit Atascadero website, we have our logo that we've recrafted that California message because again, they're already on our website. So therefore they've already shown interest. So we felt like taking that California out of the logo and placing community as SlowCal there made sense. It helps connect the two. But there are a lot of other opportunities that were presented in the marketing committee meeting, all things in kind of that phase 3, phase 4 approach. So I think the best solution is really having a conversation with the board and really having a working meeting where we can talk through, here are all the varieties and options. Here's the ways that we can go with our site and our brand. And, and then what about building out that experience and what does that look like, from a destination standpoint from where we were. So I think that will help clarify as we start to plan for the next fiscal year and really give insight to SlowCal of here's what Visit Atascadero is ready to commit to and how we're going to commit to it and what that'll look like as we roll that out in our phases, because it has to work for us individually as well. We have an established brand now and we can see that in the numbers. And so we don't want to lose that either. We have to be smart in how we really bring the two together. And there's really great ways I think that we can do that. But it's really talking through those to make sure that there's complete consensus with this board before we make any big decisions, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot to cross visitation too. So that was another thing on 3 to 5 experiences. And I've been talking with Melissa Murphy regarding the destination side on, insider tips like open container, the rock snake, the fish, the being able to fish at Atascadero Lake Park, and really working on that cross visitation, those ideas. So that's something Camille also shared from our retreat. So that was awesome. Good job.
Perfect. If that's it for Ashley, then I think we can move on to you, Terry, right, with a city business and an admin update.
Ashley, were you done? Done? Okay, making sure.
Yeah, I think as far as the overall marketing update, Verdon will have their full report in the April meeting.
Yeah,
we'll have
quarterly.
Go over everything in our normal quarterly action item kind of report. But yeah, I think the big takeaways this month was really hearing from the SlowCal team, looking at the trends. We had a big research piece component to, the overall presentation, as well as what our city counterparts are doing too. So a lot of collaboration there, which was great. So we can share a lot of those insights. And I'm planning to develop kind of a few slides on those trends. We always like to make sure that we're keeping this team informed. So we'll be sharing that in the April board meeting. April, yeah, we're in March already. It's crazy. April board meeting.
All right, I can go for it on city updates then. The Spartan booth was awesome this last weekend. It had its time frames where it was busier than other times, but it was nice to be out there. I was out there from 3 to 7 on Saturday and 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday. Brutal with the time change. But we had our event calendar out there for Atascadero. We had our hotel keys out there, these all in hotel keys. They were being pushed out. Camille's my witness. But it was good to see all the families and everyone out there. It's like, it was good to be a part of that. It was a lot different because they're in teams versus there wasn't a lot of participant or spectators. There was more teams in that, but then there was some timeframes where it slammed and we got a lot of email database stuff for Visit SlowCal and solicited that. So it was good. At her table, excuse me, on Saturday, wrapped up here in Atascadero, the city did do a sponsorship with At Her Table. So we did have our Visit Atascadero logo out there on their promotional material. So we were a big part of that. There were 2 other events that were held in the with our breweries, one at Dead Oak and one at Fossil, our wine bar. So we definitely were out there helping be a city sponsor as part of that. And then coming up, we have Central Coast Craft Beer Festival on March 26th. We're working a booth for that for Visit Atascadero and for the city. I'm allowing Josh to partake in that with the chamber. I'm keeping him at 2 people. We're at 2 people. So it's not all chamber, it's more Visit Atascadero, and we can get some play on that. So we'll hand out the rest of the keychain bottle openers. And then we'll also have our hotel keychains out there too. So you guys are being well represented. IPW wanted to give you guys an update on our end. Tom had asked about this, if Rochelle would be willing to assist with my attending along with Ashley. And so the city is going to be picking up the hotel room, the badge, which was also $12.80. That was the badge price, is pretty pricey, as well as my per diem. And then all that TBID will have is the airfare. And I actually found airfare for like $670, and it's going for like $1,300 and $1,100, mainly because I'm flying into a different airport in a different part of Florida, but it definitely benefits. So we wanted to let you guys know that we definitely came up and took care of most of our costs except for the airfare. And then lodging owners meeting. Thank you, Patricia, for hosting this. What we're trying to do is, it's a lodging owners meeting. It's not a TBID meeting. It's not a TBID board meeting. It's really strictly lodging owners, because you all have your terms that are coming up at the end of January. So the lodging owners meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 19th at 2 o'clock at Spring Hill Suites in Atascadero. And the 3 of you that are up, your term expires June 30th is Patricia, Ummer, and Dina. So that's been sent out. It's been mailed out, the letter. 30 days out is what we have to do. And then also you may have seen that come across your email as well from Visit Atascadero. So that, I believe, concludes my report to you guys.
Perfect. Thanks, Terry. And side note, Monday morning, we had people checking out and had the keychains already on their actual keys on Monday morning. So that was
So
exciting.
happy to hear that.
They
Right
were popping down on the front desk, and there would just be their blue keychains. So it was exciting.
Very cool. And I'm happy to give you guys all keychains. I got lots.
People, it's not commodity. People are trying to wheel and deal for the ones that I got from Terry. I was like, no, we gotta keep
Yeah,
them.
it's true. Very good.
Perfect. All right. So do we have any additional board member comments at this time? Not, we can move on to the future agenda items. Any board members that want to request changes or additions to the future items list? And right now it looks like we've got the political action topics presentation by the mayors, spaceport presentation, and the California Mid-State Fair sponsorship proposal.
And then I can say, if you want, we have the guest experience that Umar mentioned earlier versus events. So as we look forward, what that looks like, we can add that. I want to say that might come in more of a marketing report, but however y'all want to do that. And then also the itemized budget item, the budget cycle that we have that we're working on, I'll add that to it. And then we do have, the chamber wants to come back for a Atascadero Wine Festival to give a presentation on the $3,000 and how that will be done. And then also, I just have a question to the board. If you want us to move forward on the Elks Lodge TOT, that had come up and all of this stuff. So we need that direction. We can look into it if we want to put it on a future agenda item. Can I do that, Amanda? Can I add these pieces?
The items, absolutely,
Yeah.
because it's been agendized that we're addressing future agenda items.
Perfect, thank you. Tom?
Well, I was going to say, I think the item Amr brought up is very timely and we should really get on that. And maybe you might have, I have some ideas on research. You might have some ideas, but, and Amr, you might have too, what is some of the things we might want to consider in the budget cycle. You know, I think that's very timely. And I do think I've kind of heard through the grapevine, Elks is doing quite well on their endeavor there. So it seems quite fair to they join in paying.
What's the Elks Lodge TOT? What's that about? Do you have time to?
They've got basically recreational vehicle parking that they have a pretty good marketing, you know, statewide on. They have a number of folks staying there. And there's a lot of folks, and we even got some coming up in our city where folks are wanting to do that as part of a, you know, transient occupancy, and everybody else is charging TOT. So I think we should keep the precedent that if anyone's doing short-term stays, they should pay TOT. There was Gizmo. We're going to have one coming right in on Del Rio, or well, on, you know, El Camino, across from Home to Suites, possibly. I know a number of folks, including me, thinking about, well, yeah, we'd like to add a few spaces to augment, which is very easy to do, but got to pay TOT.
Gotcha.
Okay, it sounds like I'm adding it to the list. So I will add it to the list.
Any other changes or additions that anyone wants to see? No, I think then that marks the end of it. I think we are officially done and we can adjourn.
And we're early.
Yeah.
Wow,
We're 22. Woohoo!
well, again, I say it's a pleasure to work with you all. It is by far the best board we've ever had. Would you agree, Amr and Dina? And you know, it's a great staff team, and everybody at every level. Really, we are syncing up. And I like the Gargista guy saying, "Yeah, we're kind of a up and coming place at Atascadero."
I know, I like that.
Yes.
We're the young ones. I really like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, bye, you guys.
Everybody,
Bye,
thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.